Hello everyone, how's it going? I hope you all are doing great and staying healthy. I welcome you all once again to our webinar today, which is optimizing content for SEO in 2021. We felt that this is a very relevant topic in the current time, as we've seen a shift in how brands were shifting their budgets from paid acquisitions and refocusing on SEO strategies, just because of all the changes that have happened in 2020, which are continuing into 2021, right? So to talk about this, we are joined by Charles Taylor, who is an SEO manager at Verizon Consumer Group. He's an industry leader, and he is the leading figures in SEO specialization and management. I'll let him introduce himself in a quick bit here, but before we jump into the actual webinar, quick things to note here. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to type them in the questions box you see here in the chat box on your dashboard on GoToWebinar. We'll take those questions after the session is done, but feel free to type them during the session. That is totally fine. And Charles will have his presentation for about 30 to 35 minutes. And soon after that, we'll open the floor for questions. All right, awesome. I think that's pretty much it from my end. Let me now hand this over to Charles. Let me quickly change my screen here. Hey, Charles, the floor is yours.
Excellent.
Awesome. We see your screen and we also see you, so everything is good.
Excellent. All right, great. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. What we're going to talk about today, this webinar, is about leveraging Google's features and actually a few other free tools for optimization and ideation for your website. So first, let me talk about myself. I'll spend a few seconds. I won't spend too long. I am the SEO manager over at Verizon, actually part of a whole team there. I've been involved in SEO since around 2002, 2003. Like most people, I started out with my own websites. I had my own affiliate sites. I did that for several years, did that very well, and then I decided to kind of get a real job, so to speak, and I got into the legal vertical. I did that for a couple years, and then after that, I was in e-commerce for many years. And then recently, I'm now part of for the past 5 years, I've been doing enterprise SEO with Verizon. Here's all the different links you can find me online. You can always find me, just Google Charles Taylor SEO and I'm out there. So what are we going to cover today? So the first thing I like to do is I always kind of like to level set about what is SEO. I always clarify this is SEO, this is not SEO. Then we'll talk a little about SEO strategy. Then we're going to understand kind of how Google works and some of the cool things that Google can do for us. Then we're going to talk about content development, and then we'll do a little wrap up, and then obviously we'll have plenty of time for Q&A for everybody. So please, any questions pop up during this presentation, feel free to drop them right into that chat box. So the first question I often get is, what is SEO? SEO stands for search engine optimization. And it's really important to understand what SEO does is SEO drives organic traffic. Organic traffic is the free traffic that a website will get. The traffic is free, but the SEO is not. That's always kind of the joke I give. And the really great thing about SEO and organic traffic in particular is that it's highly leveraged. It's a fixed cost. So a paid search, for example, or maybe any kind of digital marketing campaign. If you want more clicks, if you want more visits and more impressions, you're going to have to pay more. And it's an arithmetic increase. You want to double the amount of clicks you get, you have to pretty much double your spend. Obviously, there's ways of optimizing your campaigns, but you have to spend more if you want to get more. Whereas with SEO, if done properly, you will have a base cost, but then anything beyond that is essentially free traffic. So that's what's really powerful about search engine optimization and organic traffic in general, that if you're doing it right, you are really getting the keys to the vault. So SEO is marketing, but with search engines. So in any marketing campaign, in any marketing funnel, you have awareness, you have consideration, you have decision. Well, the same thing works with SEO, except with searches. So there are informational searches, that's your awareness. There are competitive searches, that's your consideration. And then there's the actual buying searches, the searches with a purchase intent, that's the decision point. So we really have to understand what kind of searches people are doing. So SEO and organic traffic, it begins with a query. Someone types a search, someone types a keyword into Google or one of the other search engines, and you're going to get a search result page. Now, when I first started SEO, back in the old days, the search result pages were very, very basic. It was a search and then 10 blue links. And then not soon after I started, the ads started showing up on the right-hand side and on the top of the screen. And as we can see over the years, the ads have become more and more subtle. As a matter of fact, this screenshot was only from maybe 6 to 8 months ago, and the ads are actually displayed a little differently on the search result now. But under the ads, pretty much everything other than the ads, that's the domain of organic search. And you still get the 10 blue links, but not always. Sometimes you get a lot fewer than the 10 links. You'll often get, we have a knowledge panel on the right-hand side. You can get top stories or news results. You can get videos. If you do a search with a local intent, you will get a map result. If you do a search, you may get images or shopping results. So one way to think about Google is it's a meta search engine. All these different parts of this page are actually a little search engine in and of themselves, but it's all part of organic traffic and it's all part of SEO. So how do we rank? How do you rank in all, so Google's gotten very complicated, the search result pages have gotten very complicated. So how do you rank? And often I'm asked by either VPs or folks that work with me, or maybe clients, if I have clients or someone I'm just coaching individually, they'll say, okay, well, how do you rank? Can't you just call up Google? What does Google have to say about this? Well, the problem is Google is vague at best, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So a few years ago, one of their strategists, one of their engineers came out and said, well, there's the top 3 factors are content, links, and rank brain. Rank brain being their machine learning. And within a year later, someone else at Google came out and said, no, there's no top 3. We use links, but also lots more things. And then maybe about a year after that, another engineer from Google came out and said, there's tons of results that don't have links at all. So seeing these quotes, you can really say, all right, that's not really helpful. So we're left with the question, how do you rank? So let's talk a little bit about our SEO strategy. You have to build a strategy. You have to build your own strategy, and you have to build a strategy that makes sense. And strategy, you'll often find people confuse tactic with strategy. A tactic is optimizing a title tag or putting keywords in the page. A strategy is how do you approach SEO? And SEO, the cool thing is, unfortunately, as an industry, we've gotten very mystical about how we do SEO, but I always kind of level set everyone and say it's not magic, it's math. All right, SEO, there's an algorithm, a computer algorithm that's controlled by mathematical equations, very complicated mathematical equations, but it's still controlled by mathematical equations. We can figure a lot of this out. We don't need to really even listen to Google. We just need a scientific approach to it. So the way I approach it was a 4-pillar approach. So number 1, I look at accessibility or the technical issues. So if I want to be in Google's index, or any website wants to be in Google index, I have to make sure Google can find my web page. It can access my web page, it can crawl it, it can read it. There's no technical reason why the search engine can't access my website. That's the first thing you need to do. The next thing you need to do is worry about your relevance. And that's really the page content, the content on the page. Can Google read the content? Does Google understand what the content's about? Have you properly optimized the content on the page? And honestly, that's what we're going to spend most of today talking about, pretty much all today talking about, is the content or relevance section. But there's still 2 more pillars after that. So you can have a perfectly accessible website, you can have great content, but you need authority as well. And authority really boils down to incoming links from other websites into your website or into your web page. And then last but not least is quality. Those are the user metrics. Now I will admit that there's some debate in the SEO industry about how important user metrics are. And I'll agree that the science behind it is a little shaky. Google themselves has said yes, then no. Some of the testing that I've done is a little not definitive. But here's how I look at user metrics. If you increase the click-through rate from the search result page to your website, or if you decrease the bounce rate, or if you increase your conversion rate, even in a world without Google, those are still good for your website. That's still good for your business. You're not throwing away your money by doing those things. So I like to include that pillar. So let's talk about content. We're going to talk all about content. We're going to talk all about the second pillar in today's webinar. So content. We kind of all know and kind of even instinctually understand that it is important. But let's look at a ranking factor study that was done by SEMrush. This is a couple of years ago, 2017, is the end of 2017. And what this is showing us is that we see content length, on the left-hand side, and we see the position of the website, or web page, I should say, along the bottom. And what this is showing us is that pages with more content typically rank better. And when you look at the volume, or the search volume for the keyword, it's more important to have lots of content. So it's basically a content battle. Whoever gets the most content wins. And that's kind of the mindset that everyone's left with. And that's kind of a myth I wanted to dispel today. Yes, having content on your page is important. Having content is important because Google needs the context. It needs to understand a page. A page with 1,000 words versus a page with 10 words. The page with 1,000 words is probably always going to win, because a page with 10 words can't relay to Google what it is about in a matter of, with only 10 words. So it all begins with content. In the old days, so when I first did websites 15 years ago, it was all about just shoving that keyword into the page as many times as you could. So if I were wondering for dog photos, I would just put the word dog photos in over and over and over and over and over again. And then really it was an arms race. Whoever could stick it in on the page the most without running afoul of Google's algorithm or getting a manual penalty, they would essentially win. So over the years, we've definitely, there's a better form of SEO came about. Folks would start putting in related terms and synonyms and singles and single terms versus plurals, and that's better. But we're going to talk a little bit more soon about how we can give our page copy more topical depth and breadth, a deeper layer of semantic meaning. And those are just fancy ways of saying we can give Google better context. We need to give Google better context because Google's always trying to match the search intent with the page intent. And that's really the direction Google has been going in lately. And really for the last maybe 5 or 6 years. Google came out maybe, I think it was in 2012, maybe 2013, and they said, optimize for things, not strings. And what exactly does that mean, things, not strings? Well, again, in the old days, thinking of our example with our dog photos, someone would optimize for the word dog photos, and that would be the only keyword they would use. Like, this is the query I want to rank for, so this is the query I'm going to put on the page over and over and over again. And what Google's trying to explain to us is, no, it's not about using the query over and over again. It's about that depth. It's about that breadth of the subject. It's about helping us to understand the context of your page so that we can better match it to the intent of the searcher. So you have to think about the page topic in general. Now, I understand this is already starting to get a little kind of high level. I think, all right, how do I optimize for a page topic versus just the actual keyword? Is there a scientific way of doing it? The good news is there is. And actually, Google has even kind of shown their hand a little bit, and we can even see some of the keywords and some of the intent that Google's looking for specific queries. So Google's still looking for keywords on your page, but it's not just looking for the query over and over and over again. So that's the question. Which words are keyword is Google looking for? So let's understand Google's algorithm a little bit. Let's kind of make sense of what's going on. So the example I always like to use, if I say the word plant, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm talking about horticulture, meaning a house plant, a tree, a bush, my garden? Am I talking about a factory? Maybe some kind of facility, a factory, a manufacturing plant? Am I using the term plant as like espionage, a spy within an organization? So that's what's called a disambiguation. You'll see that like in Wikipedia when you type in a word, and Wikipedia's like, hey, there's multiple meanings for this. There's a book, there's a movie, there's an actor, there's a book, there's a website. So if I say the word plant, and then I say Detroit, Michigan, and then I say the word Ford Motor Company, immediately you know that I'm referring to an automotive plant, an automotive factory. And why? Because I used other terms. So if we were trying to optimize for the word plant and we were talking about an automotive factory, there are lots of other words we need to make sure we are on the page to give Google those better that better context. So there's synonyms. We still want to include synonyms. I'm not suggesting we don't include those anymore. There's related terms, so we'll still need to have related terms on the page, but there's also co-occurring terms. So terms that don't necessarily mean the same word and could actually have a whole separate meaning in a different context. But when you put them together, it adds context to your conversation. And again, my example was, I said the word plant, then I said Ford Motor Company, I said Detroit, Michigan. You knew I was talking about automotive manufacturing, and I didn't use any synonyms or related words. So Google, their machine learning, their rank brain is beginning to try to figure this out. The one way I always try to explain it is what words would naturally come up in a conversation about automotive plants. Would those words naturally come up if you were talking about those things? If the answer is yes, then it should probably be on the page. So you might be looking at this, okay, this is great. You've got these three buckets, synonym, related, co-occurring, but where do we find these words? Well, the cool thing is a lot of these words are provided to us by Google. So we can find a lot of the synonyms with match words right on the SERP page. There are related and autocomplete terms. Google has a natural language processing tool that you can go into. So you can find all of this stuff. So let's start looking at some of these examples. So to find some of the match words, so I have an example here. I typed in automotive plant, and this is right on the page. If you were to go to Google and type in one of these keywords, and a few of you may be like, well, I really never noticed this before. Let me type it into Google. You'll notice a whole bunch of bolded words on the page, and that's Google showing us these are match words. It considers these synonyms. So you'll see the word automotive plant in the search, and you'll see Google does bold the automotive plants, but you also see the word manufacturing, you see the word facility. So now we're understanding already some of the other words that we want to make sure we're optimizing for on our page, or we need to make sure we at least care for on our page. So those are the match words. The next are related searches. I think this is a little bit easier. Maybe this is less of a secret. If you just go to the bottom of Google, you will see all of the related terms at the bottom of the page. So we already know, okay, what does Google, and you'll notice some of these are even bolded. So we can see the word car is bolded. We can see Packard is bolded. So Google has already so Google bolds a lot of information on its page. That goes back to the last example. So these related searches, these are important concepts to understand that, hey, Google's telling us what other things people are typing in related to this keyword. So that's how you find a lot of your related searches and maybe some questions people are asking. And then the third bucket, this one's a little harder to find. I have a link here on the page. There is a tool called cloud.google.com/natural language. You can also go to Google, type in Google NLP, and you'll find the tool. So the neat thing with this tool, now Google has an API. So for those of you that are developers that know how to utilize APIs, you can plug right into this. Now, I will caveat and say this API, this specific Google natural language processing tool, probably isn't the exact tool that Google's using in their algorithm. So I'm not going to suggest that we're getting insight into, we're getting a peek inside the algorithm. We probably aren't. But natural language processing is natural language processing. I doubt very much that one form of natural language processing is significantly different. As a matter of fact, I've done a little testing using some Python scripts. I've used multiple different NLP tools, and for the most part, they're returning the same entities. Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference, but for the most part, they're returning the same entities. You never want to rely on any one tool anyways. So in this tool, so if you want to use kind of the quick free tool, on this page, you put your content, or maybe you put your competitor's content, and Google will pull out what it sees as the important entities, and it'll even give you a salience score. So essentially telling you what is more important than others. So we know the word is more important than manufacturing, and we have team and production, and there's a great example, production. I might not have thought of using that term on my page. So the Google NLP tool, and NLP tools in general, NLP analysis is great for us to see entities. If you're really into developing and APIs, Google also has a terminology where it shows you how people are talking about that term. So that's important as well, that we have that, you can use that as well as another way of looking at the term. So everybody's saying that's great. Now I know how to optimize a page. How do you develop content? All right, what do we write about? Because that's a constant question I always get from people. I'll get, all right, this is cool. We understand that idea of optimization, but what do I write about? If you need all this content and you need fresh content on your website, and that's one thing Google's always saying, build great content. What content do you write about? How do we know what to write about? Well, the first thing I would always say is, hey, you're the subject matter expert. You should write about what you know is important. I would also encourage you that if you have specific products or services you sell, you should make sure you have a page optimized for each of those and you have supporting pages. But what other things can we write about? The cool thing is Google tells us right on their site. Again, we can use Google's own search engine to give us information. I love the Google's autocomplete. It's a treasure trove of content ideas. Here's how you use it, and it's really simple. You're going to type in your keyword into Google search engine, but don't hit enter. So in this example, I typed in auto plant, hit the space bar, I did not hit enter, and we have a list of some of the most commonly searched phrases around our keyword. So now we instantly know, wow, people are talking about automotive plant shutdowns. People want to know what automotive plants are near them. Oh, we see closures, so that's a big issue. Salaries, they're talking about jobs and salaries. So there are people that are looking for jobs at automotive plants. I like really further down, I see automotive plant for sale. So I don't know who would be in the market for buying an automotive plant and would be searching Google, but clearly people are doing that. Maybe that's around the whole idea that things are shutting down and are they for sale or not. So this is a treasure trove of ideas, but let's take it a step further. Let's get a little crazy. You can now, using this idea, type in automotive plant, hit space, don't hit enter, and you'll see the top searches. But what if you type automotive plant and then type A and do not hit enter? You'll see all of the A words, and then you do the same thing with B and C and D. You can do that with numbers. You can do that with the 5 W's, who, what, where, when, how, why, and an H, 5 W's and an H. You can put pretty much any preposition or verb in there, and you can start getting really almost a limitless number of topics that we can see people are typing into Google. Now, this is the cool thing is Google's not going to show us this unless people were typing it into their search engine. So Google's giving us an insight as to what people are typing into the search engine. So we know A, what we should write about, and B, we know people are already looking for it. So there's a market out there asking for this information. We just have to go find it. Now, some of you may be looking at this saying, oh my God, I don't have that much time, Charles. How am I going to be typing this in over and over? The cool thing is there's lots of research tools. I'm going to give a quick plug to this one called Answer the Public. I don't have any affiliation with them in any way, shape, or form, but it is kind of a useful tool. And they have kind of a there's a little freemium module. I think you can do a certain number of searches in a week or a month or something like that. And what they'll do is they do exactly what I showed you. They do the search for A, B, C, and D, and they go through all the letters of the alphabet plus the numbers, and then they go through all the different prepositions, and they give you this cool little, you can get a list, you guys get this cool little mapping. So it's just a plethora of knowledge, and it's a lot easier to use this than it is to type the data in. However, what I would recommend is in the beginning, when you're looking for content, when you're looking for content ideas, do it manually in the beginning. And the reason I recommend doing it manually is partially you can save a couple bucks. That's always nice. But also it keeps you close to the concept. I'm a big believer that if you're going to write about something, you need to be close to that concept as much as possible. So take 15 minutes, do some searches, get some ideas, and you'd be amazed at the number of ideas you'll get in just 15 minutes. So that's how we can use Google Autocomplete. Folks sometimes say, okay, what else can we write about? What else can we put on the page? Well, here's another cool feature that Google's put into the search results just in the last couple of years. The people also ask. You type in something like automotive plant, and you'll see these are some of the questions people are asking. The neat thing about some of these things is these are questions people are asking around the subject, not only on their desktop and your mobile results, but also voice search. So this is starting to play into voice search. You will find that if you can get the answer, if your site can be chosen as the answer for one of these people also ask, most likely you will start showing up in voice search as well. And so that's kind of cool. A neat little trick, if you go to Google, and some of you probably are checking this right now, you go to Google and you find that people also ask, you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of down arrows. When you click the down arrow, it gives you the answer, and it cites the website it's giving you the answer from, but it also expands the number of people you also ask questions. So as you engage this little feature in Google, it expands the number of questions. So I found that you can keep clicking in here, and you can get a good 10, 15 questions before it starts getting a little too esoteric, it starts getting too off topic, but you can get a nice number of questions around each of your terms. So wouldn't it be cool to take this for your head term, for your primary keyword term, and then you can take your match words and plug them in and get people also ask. Then you can take your related searches and plug them in and get people also ask. So again, there's just a complete treasure trove of information in here. This is a little bit of a manual process. You can build, there are some cool scraping tools and Chrome tools that you can get and add them to your Chrome or your Firefox, and you can scrape this information around for Google, so you can make this a little more automated. And last but certainly not least, social listening tools. Now I like these because when you look at the Google Autocomplete or the match words or the related searches or the people also ask, those are relatively static. Based upon my research, based upon what I've seen, Google doesn't seem to update those on a regular basis. When I say regular, meaning they're certainly not being updated daily, and they don't even seem to be updated monthly. Maybe every couple months, Google seems to change it out a little bit. But I suspect that it takes a lot of searches and a lot of changes in searcher behavior to really move the needle. So you're kind of looking in the rearview mirror a little bit with those tools. You're seeing what people have searched. You're not necessarily looking at what people are doing right this second. And that's where social listening tools come in. So social listening tools, they're looking at the social media, and you're getting kind of a finger on the pulse of your potential customers, the people that you want coming to your website. So here are some key concepts around the Clubhouse, the app Clubhouse. So here's some of the cool things that people are saying. So these are some of the important keywords. These are keywords you could use in your content. You can use this to kind of tease into what should you be writing about, what topics can you talk about. You can also, so this is for optimization and for content ideation. So you can use this both ways. Another tool you'll see in a lot of social listening, or another tool you'll find in social listening tools is this, these topic modeling. I love this. This is so powerful because this tells us a couple different things. So if we were typing about Clubhouse, we can see all the related keywords around that. So these are keywords that we want to include not only in our content, but we want to make sure that these keywords appear on our social media posts. We can optimize our social media posts. I know a lot of people say organic social is dead. I'm not convinced of that. And my number one argument against the idea that organic social is dead is that things are still going viral. So if things are still going viral, organic social is not completely dead. Granted, it's harder, but it's not dead. So we look at something like Clubhouse Invite. We can see all the keywords around it. So those are what we use both on our website. We could use that in our social media posts. Something else that's kind of cool here is these topics. This gives us a content silo to use as well. So if we're going to have a website and we're going to have all of these topics on our website, we know we can take our quote unquote money term or our top term that we want to really rank for, we can put it into a tool, and we can see some of the supporting content we need to write and then have that linking up. So one of the concepts in SEO is you have your top page at the top, and then you're going to have blog posts or articles linking up to it, and they're going to get kind of the more long tail keyword. This is giving you your map. This is giving you your website map and layout. So you can see your primary keyword, you can see keywords you can include, but you can also see the other supporting content that you want to include on the website. So that is, this I find can be very, very powerful. And you're getting information from a source other than Google, which it's always good diversifying. So let's do a little wrap up. I realize I threw a lot at you folks. I'm sure there's lots of questions, which is great. I'm happy to answer as many questions as possible. So let's just talk about, what do we do? It's great to hear these kinds of things and to sit on these kind of webinars. I've done this myself. At lunchtime, you're eating, you're maybe doing some work, you're multitasking, but let's take some action. We got to take some action. So number one, figuring out the content, how to develop content and how to optimize your content. You don't have to guess. So you'll hear the term sometimes, be an SEO, not a guesseo. You don't have to guess. Google's telling us exactly how we can optimize our content. They're telling us exactly what kind of content people are searching for. And most of this information is completely free. Just spend a little time doing some searches, pull up a notepad or an Excel, and you can just document the stuff. So that's kind of cool. So we know to optimize our pages, we want to have really there's three buckets. There's the match words. Those are the synonyms. There's the related words, and you can find those with related searches. And then there's the co-occurring terms. I like to use natural language processing. I also use LSI, latent semantic indexing tools. Be careful which tool you use. Some of them are better than others. You'll find some folks will say LSI, Google says they don't use LSI. I agree, Google probably doesn't use LSI in their algorithm, but you'll find there's an amazing amount of overlap between LSI terms and NLP terms. So it's kind of a cool extra tool to have in your toolkit. So that's how we're going to optimize our page. Your content ideation, Google autocomplete, it's amazingly powerful to use. People also ask, that's giving you exact information as to what content to be putting on the page. There's obviously lots of keyword research tools out there you can use, social listening tools. Those are really good for getting the cutting edge concepts that you want to make sure you write about. And that's really helpful if you're trying to rank in things like news. So you want to rank in news articles, you want to rank in Google News. That's a whole separate algorithm. You need to make sure you're using a lot of these social listening tools, because that's going to tell you the latest and greatest concepts and subjects people are talking about. So what I want you to do, I'm going to give you all an action plan. I'm going to give you guys some homework. So you're going to take your number one term, and I want you to go to Google and you're going to type it in without hitting enter and start seeing some of the top queries. You're also going to look at that page and you're going to, and then hit enter, and I want you to look at the match words and the related searches. And already, hopefully, you're getting a whole bunch of cool ways like, oh, I should include this word and I should include that word on my page. And then once you're looking at that Google result, then you're going to use the autocomplete that we already looked at. And the people also ask, come up with new concepts, new things you should talk about. And hopefully you're going to immediately see some things for your primary keyword that, wow, I didn't even realize people are asking this question. And I'll be honest, sometimes these questions, they're a little weird. They're a little strange. Like, why are people asking this? But people are asking about it. I'm not going to ask the reason why. I'm just going to give it to them. And then social listening tools, if you feel to make the jump and get into some social listening tools, that gives you really that cutting edge, and you can use it both for your website and for your social media posts. So I've thrown a lot of stuff at you. I realize that. I realize I don't breathe a lot in between slides. I've been working on that. You've obviously got lots of questions. That's okay. I've got answers. I would like everyone to feel free, ask me whatever question you have. Feel free to challenge me on any of these things. Any question you have about this subject, and you know, honestly, you're welcome to ask me pretty much anything you want about SEO. I've been doing it for over 15 years now. I've done small sites, legal, e-commerce, enterprise. I've seen a lot of it. I can't say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. So you're always welcome to pretty much fire at me whatever you want. Thank you.
Hey, Charles, thank you so much for that presentation. That was brilliant. I mean, I definitely learned a lot, and I hope and I believe all our attendees here have also learned a lot today. Thank you so much. I do see some questions here, so we can start shooting them your way. This one was more about social listening tools from Debbie. Debbie's asking, are there any free social listening tools? Debbie, I'm not sure. There might be one or two tools that offer social listening for free at a very small number of sources that they provide us with. I can look for some examples and send some answers your way. I'll make a note and send that email over your way. I hope that works for you. But Charles, if you're aware of any social listening tools for free, feel free to let Debbie know here. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
I'll tell you the first thing I always do with any tool, go to Google and type in free social listening tool. I think you'll find most of the time what a lot of tools do is they often have a kind of freemium model where they'll give you a little bit, and so test it out, see if it works for you. If it gets giving you good information, as long as it's not prohibitively expensive, buy it. You know, spend a couple bucks and get the tool. You know, these folks. The cool thing with getting one of these tools is, especially if you're paying for it, there's folks that are behind the scenes making this better constantly. So I always kind of challenge everybody that yes, there's free tools out there. Go look for them. Most tools have kind of a freemium model where you can try a little bit and then you can get more. But don't be afraid to spend, you know, what, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, 40 bucks a month and to get the content. And again, use the free stuff to see if it's helping you. And if it is, then you know it's worth buying.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Charles. We have another question from Carl. Thank you for this very informative webinar. How can we get the presentation PowerPoint? Carl, so we'll be sending you emails with both the slide deck and the recording of this webinar, hopefully by tomorrow, if not by Monday. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Carl. We have another one from Susan. I'm not sure if I can pronounce your last name correctly. Susan Stegeman. So she's asking, can you share an example of how NLP works? I'm not sure I see how this helps.
Sure, not a problem. So I'm going to take, everybody can still see my screen, I hope. I'm going to go back to, we'll go back up a couple slides. So the way NLP works, and I'm going to talk specifically about this Google tool. Google NLP means natural language processing. And what these tools do is they try to, the tools are trying to determine what is the subject. They use the term entity, but what is like the subject of this sentence? So what this tool can do is you put the content into this little box, and you put the content and you click analyze, and sometimes it happens real fast, sometimes it takes forever for Google to process this. But any NLP tool, really, you go through the same process, and it will spit back out, hey, here's what we're considering the important entities in this content. And it looks at the content and it says, well, it can really, let's go back to, if everybody remembers in high school or maybe even middle school when you would dissect sentences and you'd have to say, okay, this is the preposition of the sentence, this is the verb, this is the noun, and that's really what it's doing. It's breaking down all of the sentences for the entire bit of content, and it's determining what is the subject for each sentence. And what it's figuring out is like, wow, you know, the word automotive or car is the subject in 10 out of the 20 sentences. That must be an important entity. So that's how it pulls these words out. I'm being very simplistic with my explanation because I'll be honest, I'm not an expert at NLP, but that's what it's doing. It's breaking down the sentences and it's looking at it and it's pulling out the important words, for lack of a better term. That's why I say Google's still looking for keywords. That's kind of the dirty little secret. Google's not reading the sentences. It's still looking for keywords. It's just not looking for the specific query. So an NLP tool will tell you what the content is about. So how would you use it? Maybe that's the better question you might have. So if you want to rank for a specific term, let's take something different. Let's say DUI lawyer in New York City or NYC DUI lawyer. Like that's a really highly competitive term, has a very high cost per click. If you were to take the top 2 or 3 ranking pages and put them into Google's NLP tool, you would see all the important entities. And you'll see words like blood alcohol level, roadside test, BAC, which is blood alcohol content. You'd see terms like that. And you're like, wow, these are terms that are important to have in my content because Google's pulling them out and understands that these entities are important. So essentially what you're doing is you're looking at Google's top ranking results, figuring out what are the quote unquote important words, and then you can take that information and make sure it's included in your words, in your content. I mean, I hope that explains it without making it more confusing.
Awesome, thanks for that, Charles. I think I hope that answered your question, Susan. We have another question from Mark Sikthar. My page is written in JavaScript and PHP. I understand Google has trouble searching these tech-heavy pages. What do you think?
Yeah. So a lot of SEOs will say, I hate PHP. Well, not PHP. I hate JavaScript. Here's the problem. Google says they can read JavaScript. Google lies. We've already established that. So that's that first pillar, the technical pillar. Google has to be able to read your content. If Google can't read your content, then you can do all the optimization, you can do all the linking, you can do all the user metrics. Google doesn't know what your page is about, so it can't rank your page. So what are the solutions? There's nothing wrong with using JavaScript. There's nothing wrong with using React. There's all these great tools that are out there. What I would do is just make sure you're using a server-side rendering solution. What you're probably doing, either you or your developers are doing a client-side rendering. Google's not good with client-side rendering, not yet. I think they're still a couple of years away from it. So you want to do a server-side rendering. What does that mean? It just means that the server is keeping a cache of the page, basically an image of the page, so that when Google hits your server and looks for that page, there's a page there waiting for it. It's not trying to render later. If that's just not an option, and you're, for whatever reason, you just can't technically do it, there are a few pre-rendering solutions you can use. There are tools that will pre-render your pages and cache your pages. They're okay. I don't want to say they're horrible. I don't want to say they're great. You understand we're still using a Band-Aid. The fundamental problem is that Google can't crawl our content, and we're using tools to try to help Google get our content. So my recommendation, if you take anything, do server-side rendering. Ask your guy, can you just do server-side rendering? Sometimes they'll tell you, oh my God, it's a huge load on the server. Not really. Test your page speed beforehand, do a test with a server-side rendered page, test it after. I think you'll find that it's not going to be impacting your users hardly at all.
Awesome, thanks for that, Charles. Mark, I hope that answered your question. We have a comment from Natalie Gesnot. I feel like I'm butchering everyone's last names today. I'm so sorry for that. But Natalie says, thank you very much for your presentation. I learned a lot. So thanks again, Charles. I totally agree with her. Another question from Jerry Jordan. Does whiteboard animation improve content?
I'm sorry, what kind of animation?
Whiteboard animation.
Okay, so if you had like a whiteboard animation on your page. Okay, great question. So you know what? That's actually, I'm really glad you asked that question because I kept using the term content over and over again, and that means different things to different people. Google is good with copy, meaning text. Google's less good with other things. I'm not saying Google can't look at an image, but once you start putting a lot of images, maybe you have like, I'm going to date myself and say I have a lot of Flash on your page. People don't use Flash anymore. Using basically animated content, videos, all of that content on the page, that's great content. There's nothing wrong with that content, but Google can't really read that content. So look at a page on your website. Often on our websites, we have words in images or in videos. I know Enterprise loves doing lots of words in videos because it looks really cool. The problem is Google can't read those words. And if Google can't read those words, they don't count towards your optimization. So I don't want to say something is necessarily good or bad. I would never tell my designers that you can't use this on a page, but just understand if you're using a lot of these, whiteboard, video, just images, anything other than text on the page, Google won't be able to read it, and that content won't necessarily count towards your optimization. Now, the cool thing is, here's the trick. If you want to talk about a subject on that page that has nothing to do with the content, and you're worried about watering down the topic of your page, put it in one of these other formats that Google can't read. And now you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. I'm not suggesting trick Google. Let's be very clear about this. I'm not suggesting tricking Google. What I'm suggesting is if you're concerned about, if you want to talk about a subject that might water down your topic, you can put it in another format so that it doesn't hurt your optimization.
Awesome. I love that, Charles. Thank you so much. Jerry, I hope that answers your question. I know you have another question about videos. I believe Charles just answered that. So moving on to another question.
If I can touch on videos ever so quickly, because I think that's another great question. If you're doing any marketing on YouTube or you have videos on your page, I would recommend making sure that the transcript for the video is on that page, or if you're on YouTube or one of these other video platforms, put the transcript in the description. Those are the words, that's what Google can read. And that'll help you to rank the page, and you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. People go to your page, they see the video at the top, you can put the transcript below it. That means your user will see the video, they can interact with it, they can do whatever, but the search engine sees all the content and can optimize you based upon that content. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to, kind of made me think of a cool idea there.
No, I think that was very relevant. Thanks a lot for that, Charles. We have a question here from Natalie again. Could you talk about search intent and how it would impact a keyword content strategy? I understand there are different types of intent, but I'm not sure what to do about it or how it would impact a content strategy.
Okay, so I'm going to commit a little SEO heresy right now, and the Twitter sphere may blow up a little bit on me. I am not a huge, I don't want to say I don't believe in intent. Yes, there's different keywords definitely have different intent. I don't want to say that, but how do you measure it? It's almost impossible to measure. So what I'll typically do, if I want to rank for a specific word, well, let's go back and say automotive plant or my DUI attorney in New York City. I will search Google that word and maybe a few variations of that word and see what kind of pages Google is ranking. That gives me an idea of what Google thinks the intent is. So you notice I'm not saying here's the intent of the word. I'm trying to figure out what does Google think the intent of the word is. What does Google think the searcher intent is? Are searchers looking for deep content? Are they looking for a product? What are the kinds of pages that Google's ranking? So I use that as my guidepost. It's not very scientific, and I always pride myself on being as analytical and scientific as possible, but it's a little more trial and error. And then the unfortunate thing is that can change. Google could just say, oh, it looks like people are doing other things, and then they'll just change the result. I've been in spaces where Google's ranking content, and then Google's update comes through, and now it starts ranking videos. And I have this great content, now I got to make a video to compete. So that's how, there was a tool years ago, Bing had this tool, it was the commercial intent tool, and it was amazing. What they were doing is they were giving keywords, and I guess they were pulling it out of their ads, and they were showing you what keywords, I guess, converted. I never really understood how it converted, but it would tell you this word had a commercial intent of 0.8, it was like 0 to 1 or 1 to 100 or something like that. This was 0.8, this was 0.5. So I knew, hey, I want to go after the 0.8 keywords because those people are looking to make some kind of purchase decision. That tool's been gone for over a decade now. There's nothing like it out there anymore. So I typically just use Google search results to kind of inform me what does Google like to rank for that keyword. And then I use the people also ask to get an understanding of what information are people trying to figure out when they type in this keyword? What other questions are people asking around this?
Awesome. Thanks a lot for that, Charles. We have a follow-up question from Kelly about the YouTube video that you just talked about and having a transcript of the video there.
Okay.
What Kelly is asking is, does the transcript have to be visible or in the meta?
Great question. So in YouTube, so the way YouTube works is the meta information is not easily accessible. I believe the title of your YouTube is the title tag, and it grabs the beginning of the description as your meta description. So here's how I do it, and here's how I've done it for Verizon and some clients and some of my own stuff. What I'll do is I'll take the transcript, and now we have our USP, our unique sales proposition, or like the key concept we want to optimize. Those will be the first couple of lines in the description. And then I put a few empty lines, then I put some dashes or equal signs or something, then I'll do another empty line, and then I'll put underneath that, I'll put the transcript. So when someone finds the page in YouTube, they won't really see the transcript. They have to click that see more, that little see more link underneath the YouTube video to see the full transcript. But the neat thing is Google's seeing it, Google's crawling it, Google's ranking you based upon that. So it's not like in the face of the user. You're not trying to shove it into any kind of meta information. You're not doing any kind of stuffing. You're just putting it at the bottom of your description. So that's how I would do it.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Charles. I hope that answers your question, Kelly. We have another question from Kamar. If we have a global page in English and then regional pages like Australia, USA, etc., with specific HRE flags, I'm not sure if I get that. We define global page. Yeah, we define global page as a canonical one. Shall we also define local pages as canonical for users in the specific countries?
Okay, so I think it was Kumar that asked that question. That is a big question. So I have to give you like the Reader's Digest version. There's like, I could do a whole presentation just on the hreflang tag. So the quick answer, and I apologize, it's going to have to be kind of a quick answer. You're welcome to reach out to me, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. I'll be happy to give you a more in-depth answer. But what you have to do is, when you have multiple languages, the first thing you want to make sure you figure out is, what is my primary website? Let's just, for the sake of pretending, your primary website is an Australian-based website, .au. And I don't know if you have other websites or if you just have other languages on that website. Either way, the process would work the same. You have your primary website and your primary pages. You will use the canonical tag for that page, but you will use the hreflang tag to point to the other language versions of the page. But the weird thing with the hreflang tag is you have to put an hreflang tag for the AU version, even though that's the page they're on. So you're gonna have a canonical pointing to itself. You're gonna have an hreflang for the AU version, the Australian version, pointing to itself. Then you'll have an hreflang for the US English, and then maybe you'll have an hreflang for UK English, and then maybe you have it in another language. Maybe you have it in Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, French. You would then have the hreflang pointing to that version. And then when you go to those versions, the canonical tag will point to itself, and then it'll have you'll have a list of hreflang tags, one pointing to itself, identifying, saying, hey, I'm the US English language, and then a version pointing to the UK English, then the Australian English, and then maybe the Mexico Spanish, the French version. So you're gonna have the same hreflang tags pretty much on all pages. The canonical will always point to itself. Canonical doesn't want to point to another version of the page. So that's the quickest I can give you that answer, and there's a lot more to that subject.
Awesome, thanks for that, Charles. And Kamar, feel free to reach out to Charles for
Please
any further details about this. And I learned about hreflangs right now, so thanks so much for that, Charles. Awesome. I mean, I don't see any more questions coming from the audiences. We have 10 more minutes, so feel free to type any more questions. But I have some for you, Charles, sure, based on the presentation. So you talked about autocomplete questions and how we can identify more topic ideas from that. But my question here is, aren't autocomplete questions customized for each searches? And if so, are these still a reliable source of data?
That's a great question. And so the quick answer is still use it. All right, so if anyone has to drop off in the next 5 seconds, you can still use autocomplete, don't worry. But there is a long answer. There's always a long answer and a short answer with SEO, and with me particularly. The long answer is you're correct. Autocomplete is customized. Your results, your Google results are customized too. So if I type a search, if I just type in attorney or DUI attorney, or maybe I should use a different example. Everybody thinks I have DUI problems. I don't. If I type in, pizza, I'm going to get localized results for New Jersey. I'm located in New Jersey. If somebody in California types the same query, they're going to get localized results. So not only are the autocomplete customized and localized, the results are as well. How do we get around this? So the quick answer is, you'll find that the autocomplete don't vary that much. So you can still use it, you can still rely on it, it's still a good tool. If you are really concerned that you're getting some kind of localized or customized results, what you can do is you can use the incognito mode in Chrome. We just learned though that the Chrome's incognito mode is not nearly as incognito as they like to claim it was. So it calls that into question a little bit. What I also do on my own for my own computer, I have Microsoft Edge, I think it is. I don't use it for anything but research. So I don't browse with it. And so that way they don't have any information about me on that browser. So that's another kind of trick you can use.
Interesting. I love that. I'm definitely making notes of all these things. Thanks a lot for that, Charles. And Kamar says he's going to reach out to you on LinkedIn right away. So
great.
Later. Another question I had was, how often should I use these other keywords, quote unquote, in my context?
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yep. I understand exactly the question. So it gets into the question like, okay, how often should I use that keyword? If I'm talking about automotive plants, should I, how many times should I say Detroit, Michigan? So my first answer is going to feel a little bit like a non-answer. Use it to what makes sense. And there was I heard an old saying one time. You read your content out loud and maybe even look in a mirror, and if you don't giggle at the end of it, then your content's okay. If you giggle at the end of it, then you're like, all right, maybe I've over-optimized a little bit. Don't think in terms of keyword count or keyword density. Is that still in Google's algorithm? Yeah, probably. I'm not going to say it's definitely not in there. It's probably still in there someplace. But what you want to do is use it to the level it makes sense. What do I do personally? I try to make sure all these related and match words are in there at least once. I will then read my content, and if it sounds a little cumbersome, I'll then adjust it. If I'm not ranking well after a couple months, I'll then start looking at my competitors. Are they using these keywords more often? And if I find they use some of these other keywords, maybe they're using the word production, let's just say, a whole bunch of times, I then might up the number that I use it in the website and my content a little bit, just to be able to compete. It gets to be a little bit of a testing process at that point.
Got it. A quick follow-up there. I know you mentioned researching competitors' content, right? I'm sure there are tools for that, but is there another way to deal with that and understand what competition is writing about and how we can take ideas from there?
So I haven't found a really good tool for it. So I built my own tool, and I didn't build it because I don't know how to program. What I did, and anyone could do this, I built a tool using Python. I went to one of these websites, hired somebody overseas. They built me a cool little tool. I put in the URLs, and then it pulls the title tag, the meta description, the H1 tag, and the copy for the page. And I take that and I can put it into my analysis. And I have Excel sheets, Google, I'm sorry. I have Excel files, and it analyzes the content. It actually tells me how many times all these keywords are used. Are the keywords used and how many times? So I have kind of a gauge with how I should optimize my content. Is this too much? Is this not enough? Because you don't want to stand apart from the crowd in Google. You want to kind of, I don't want to say under the radar, but you want to be right in that meaty middle someplace. If all of your competitors are using the keyword 25 times, it's safe to do. You're not going to have any problems with any kind of over-optimization penalties. If your competitors are using keywords 4 or 5 times and you try to go in there using it 30 times on your page, you're probably going to trigger one of these fringe over-optimization factors.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, thanks for that, Charles. We have like a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them here. I have one more question for you, Charles, in the meanwhile. Does it matter where I use my target keywords or these other keywords on my page, meaning on the page URL, title tags, or copy itself?
Right. So whenever you think of optimizing a page, there are certain, what I always call optimization zones. There are certain places, if you want to rank for automotive factory, you've got to put that word in your title tag. I'd put it in the meta description. Now, caveat, meta description is not an optimization zone, but there's another reason why you want to use it. We'll talk about that in a second. You want to use it in your header tags, H1, H2. You definitely want to use it in the copy. So there's places you want to make sure you have it on your site. Your additional keywords, kind of going back to the last one, you sometimes want to look at the competitors. You'll sometimes look at a keyword and be like, oh my God, yeah, that keyword needs to be on the title tag. That just makes sense. It would make people want to click. So you want to put it in there. I always like making sure, if you go into Google Search Console, you'll see the queries, the search queries that people are driving to the page. Make sure those queries are in your meta description. The reason why I like making sure they're in the meta description is we've all had the problem where Google doesn't pull our meta description. And we've crafted this nice meta description with our USP in it and a call to action, and Google grabs content from the page. The reason why Google often does that is because the search query is not in the meta description. If you make sure the search query is in the meta description, Google will be more likely to grab your meta description that you crafted, as opposed to just grabbing random text off your page. So that's why I do it in the meta description. It's not about optimization. It gets in that fourth pillar of the user metrics, getting that conversion, that click-through rate better.
Interesting. Awesome. Thanks a lot for that, Charles. All right. Anyone has any other questions here? I don't see a lot coming in. We have a few more minutes and we have Charles here, so please send your questions. I have one more, Charles, for you. I think we can wrap it up after this if you don't have any other questions coming from the attendees. So other than Google, are there any other places where I can find these co-occurring keywords that I can use in my content?
Yeah, no, that's really good, because it's funny. I admit to it myself. You know, we all call ourselves search engine optimizations, but really we're like GEOs. We're Google engine optimizers. We end up becoming blind to the other search engines. So if you go to Bing, if you go to DuckDuckGo, you'll see they have the match words just like Google does. They have those bolded terms. They don't seem to have any kind of people also ask, so that's, you know, oh well. They do all have related searches. So all the search engines have the match words and they all have the related searches. What I've never done, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to have to do this. Do they do them? If I do a keyword in Google and Bing and DuckDuckGo, will they return the same match words? Will they return the same related searches? I don't know. I'm sure they're going to be somewhat different. The question is, how different are they going to be? I don't know. So I'm going to make a note of that, and I'm going to compare that, because that would be a cool little test to run. But yeah, so you can go to the other search engines. They may give you, they may give you a little information or an idea, something that'll spark an idea that you can then use on your website. You can also think about optimizing for specific search engines. Maybe you know your users. Understand your users. If you know your users are more likely to use Bing, or more likely to use DuckDuckGo, or more likely to use Yahoo, then you really want to start optimizing for that search engine, because you're optimizing for the user. You're doing optimization to get users. You're not doing optimization to make Google happy or Bing happy or DuckDuckGo happy.
Awesome. Makes sense, Charles. No, thanks a lot for that, Charles. I think that's pretty much it from my end as well. So thanks once again, Charles. It was really brilliant. It was a pleasure, partnering with you on this. A lot of insights around SEO. As I'm just borrowing your phrase here, you don't have to guess SEO, but you can SEO now. So I love that. Thanks a lot for that, Charles. And thanks all of you for attending this webinar today. I hope and I believe that you all learned something important. And yeah, feel free to reach out to Charles if you have any questions around SEO. And if you have any questions around social listening, you can reach out to me. I can always answer your questions. But yeah, thanks a lot for all your engagement today. It was brilliant. A lot of interesting questions. And Charles, thanks for all the insights once again.
Thank you very much for the invite. I appreciate it. And thanks a lot to everybody for all the questions. Some really good questions out there.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot, everyone. I hope you all had a great day. And Charles, we'll speak some other time. But thanks a lot once again for your time today.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.